thinking back all my life, I was born in Cisco. I've heard the story of old Rip.
People did talk about it and were actually expecting it to be there, dead or alive, when the cornerstone was opened.
The Texas House and Senate both proclaimed old Rip the most famous horned toad in the state of Texas.
So why are we here today? Because of old Rip! That's right. And when I learned the story of old Rip, I thought it was so cool I had to write a song about it. Old Rip, the horny toad. Old Rip did for Rip and Winkle. Took a nap in that cornerstone. For 31 years he was sealed inside it. For 31 years he was all alone. All alone. Old Rip, the horny toad. Old Rip, the horny toad. Old Rip, 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 the horny toad.
The story is, and I say story, it's kind of like George Washington is supposed to have never told a lie. And we appreciate that story. And we also appreciate the story of old Rip, and we hope both of them are true. But the horned toad was not originally known as old Rip, of course. The toad's name was Blinky. At the day that they were putting the things in the cornerstone, a Bible, whiskey, some other things, they decided to put old Rip in there, Blinky.
And so they decided to put that horned toad in there. They had heard that he would live for a long time, you know, the story was. So they just put him in there to experiment with him, and that's how it came about.
Eastland wanted something more modern. Eastland was going through another building boom and necessitated the need for a new courthouse.
I was employed on the tearing down the old courthouse. I was working on a lumber pile out there, and I stood up on this lumber pile and saw him when they took him out.
And these folks that come now that were there were these smaller, younger kids, and they were back in the crowd and said they couldn't see too much.
And the story is that the toad was opened and picked up the toad out of the cornerstone, and it looked like it was dead. It was flat, dusty, you know, just like the newspapers and so forth that were in the cornerstone.
And they held him up there in the palm of their hand. And there was about 4,000 people there.
And the person was holding it up and talking and letting everybody see it. And the story is that the horned toad started to move, kind of jerk a little bit. Somebody said, "It's alive."
They heard the roar of the crowd when he was held. held up.
He'd come alive then and was moving around.
And so the idea is that that horned toad must have been in there all those 31 years.
They really got excited. Everybody was just happy and going around and having a good time, you know, and celebrating. Everybody was surprised. A lot of people thought it wasn't true, you know, but there's so many people that couldn't very well have done that, you know, secretly. And it's really true.
It was on February 18th, so it would have been difficult to find a live moving horned toad at that time.
Well, one old gentleman from Cisco who worked in Eastland as a railway express agent said he was there and saw him brought out and that he was alive, and he carried an old-timey purse. It had about 3 pockets in it. He'd open that purse and get out a $100 bill. And he said, "I'll give $100 to anybody that can find me a horned frog on the 28th day of February, just out of the wild." And he said, "That's how much I believe it." He said, "Where would they get one?"
The fact that it was so unusual, and because at the time it gained so much publicity, all of the scientists were asked to speculate on whether or not a horned lizard could live 31 years without water or food or anything, and they had varying replies. Some of them said, well, they thought it was certainly possible. Some say, well, of course not. The toad was able to gain nationwide publicity through the newspapers, newsreels. There were newsreel cameras there that day, and actually went to see President Coolidge.
President Calvin Coolidge wanted to see him. He'd heard the story of him, and that he took a peek at him and didn't smile at first, but then he said, yeah, I said, he's alive, and kind of grinned. So that old Rip made silent Calvin Coolidge smile.
Old Rip lived in a goldfish bowl type situation for a while and toured throughout the United States.
One report is that they got 10 cents each from 400 people in St. Louis that filed into a hotel lobby just to peek at him. Then after his touring days were over, a few months there while he was brought back to Eastland, and had him, it's wintertime, and they had him out on the sun porch. It was warm that day and they forgot to bring him in. And so next day they could tell something was wrong with him.
And ended up dying of pneumonia in a freak cold snap, and then was put in a little casket over at the courthouse where he still is today. He was embalmed.
His remains stayed right there in the lobby of the courthouse, and when we were little kids, our folks would come over to pay their taxes and register to vote, pay their poll tax, and we would kind of slip up there and take a quick peek at him. We were kind of afraid of him. I don't know why.
Children like to come and look at the casket with old Rip in it. Of course, most of them now have never seen a horned toad. And it's something, I suppose, as amazing as a dinosaur would be to them. And people come from everywhere still, constantly through the summer. There's a string of people walking up to the courthouse and looking at the casket with the horned toad in it.
Old Rip used to be considered a good luck omen. Politicians running for office, local offices, would stand out there by his casket and make their announcement, have a little press conference, and so.
Back in the 1960s, in fact 1962, when then Governor John Connally was running for re-election, our local newspaper publisher took old Rip to Ranger to make a whistle stop through Eastland County with the governor, and Out of respect for the late Governor Conley, this hadn't been widely circulated, and he died a few years ago, so I feel free to tell this.
They brought the frog to Conley, and he picked it up, and the leg fell off.
Anyway, it may be a legend, but the one you see there doesn't have one back leg.
The governor picked old Rip up out of his casket by his leg, and when he did, his leg broke and fell off, and old Rip fell on the floor. And if you'll notice, he's still sporting 3 legs. And that's how that missing leg actually came about.
Then finally someone, I don't know if it's someone that kind of resented how much fun we were having out of old Rip or not, actually did swipe him. It
was in 1971 when old Rip was stolen from the courthouse. Now on this occasion there's all kinds of speculation about who or what was involved, and I quite frankly don't know who got him, and we may not know until after those people have died, and the people who do know are free to tell the story.
The sheriff of the county at that time announced what all he's going to do when he found out the thief of old Rip, how he's going to prosecute him and probably go to jail and pay a big fine. And so that almost made it impossible for us to get him back. But an anonymous letter came out saying where it could be found, is out at the livestock arena out here. And so he was brought back, and we made sure he's in that locked case. Only the present county judge has a key to it.
And still travels, as a matter of fact, even though he doesn't know a lot about it, I guess. He travels, was recently at Six Flags.
We really had a good time with that. Old Rip was actually the headliner of about 40 displays. They had the world's largest armadillo, world's largest jackrabbit from Odessa was one. I believe the auto part dinosaur, and I can't remember where that was from. The world's largest fruit cake from Corsicana. Oh yeah, the Hidalgo giant killer bee was there also. Quite a few oddities. Cal Brim went around to the state of Texas just collecting the most unique and intriguing stories from around the state, and he had some really good, it was a really successful and good exhibition. We had a going away ceremony. In fact, we had one of the local funeral homes brought their hearse, and we had a processional. The Commissioner's Court and former Judge Bailey acted as pallbearers, and we had a Sheriff's Department escort all the way to Arlington. It's really a fantastic little festival. It's a celebration of small town life.
The Old Rip Festival is the busiest time for the citizens of Eastland. The town really comes alive. Things have changed, of course, through the years because of so many other things that go on. We still have the horned toad derbies, although we can't use live horned toads anymore.
They used to have that years ago, and actually had horned toads in it, and it had a circle drawn off, and then a inner circle, and they were all put in there together, and a big thing like a big tub or something, I think is actually a roof off of a chicken brooder was put in there, and they'd wrap a few times on that and then lift it up, and the first one that got outside of that circle, I think got $500.
And this was another thing that through the years really gained a lot of publicity nationwide. And the Chamber of Commerce would write letters to famous people, movie stars and so forth. One year Edgar Bergen had a $5 bet on a toad. And I don't think his toad won, but I think he came in second or third. And that was another way of gaining publicity for the city of Eastland, something that seems to me very unique.
They're planning to have one now, but there'll be like these little radio-controlled cars that I guess will have a horned toad figure put on there.
You'll see that the courthouse square will be filled, and for miles down Main Street, people will be lined up, and it's one of the best little rural parades you'll see. It's a long parade, and people take a lot of pride in it.
What is this coming up? It's the Eastland Maverick Band.
A parade that you would never imagine in a town like Eastland. It'll last an hour or more. Bands and riding groups and floats and so forth.
Still alive and kicking.
Some nice floats. Some, they don't all have to do with Old Rip. There are classic cars. I plan to drive a 1946 Hudson Super 6 tomorrow in the parade.
Denver Daniels playing from the Old Baptist Church.
We've had people from Liverpool, England, and from Germany and places like that come to those Old Rip days.
We had a news service from Germany several years ago come and do a big story on it. But I think worldwide, it's been a worldwide thing.
The Believe It or Not program came on a fellow named Jack Palance, ABC, and he decided to come and do a Ripley's Believe It or Not on Old Rip. And it came out that when Ripley first had his first Believe It or Not column, it was on Old Rip, 1936. And so this was many years later, and Mr. Palance said, Old Rip, believe it or not.
Every time someone tells me it's an old story and I can't believe you can get another mile out of it, it's just amazing. Someone will come along and hear the story for the first time and something new happens. You know, there are a lot of people that don't believe it, but I can tell you, I deal with facts and sworn testimony, and even at this late juncture, I've been the Eastland County Judge for 5 years, and I've heard 8 people who were actually on location swear under oath that the story of Old Rip is a true story, and it is a unique story, and it captures the imagination of children of all ages around this part of the country.
There's no doubt about it in my mind that it all happened that way. And I'm a living example of it. I'm 91 years old. And I'm still going strong. I hope.
And he said one Texas brag is that the air in Eastland County is so fresh and clear and pure that a horned frog took a deep breath and didn't have to breathe again for 31 years.
Shouting out, he's alive, yes, he's alive. Old name for it.
What's in the future? I have no earthly idea, but it's never dull around here.
31 years he was sealed inside it. 31 years he was all alone. Some folks say it was merely a joke, sleight of hand meant to deceive. Some folk call Rip's revival a hoax.